Coming up,
Palestine will be free!
not just supporting the Palestinians.
They prey on emotions.
What you really need to know about these student rallies.
Will use any mechanism they can to push their agenda.
Who's running the protests?
It's a day of courage!
And what's their hidden agenda? Is Hizb ut-Tahrir, in your mind, an extremist group?
They're certainly extremist. They're searching for a global caliphate, eventually rule the world.
Next on 60 Minutes. The deaths of innocent civilians are heartbreaking. The destruction of towns and villages, horrendous. What's happening in Gaza following Hamas's murderous rampage in Israel last October is a catastrophe that's destabilising the whole world. In Australia, regular protests supporting both sides of the conflict have so far been mostly peaceful. But tonight, in this joint investigation with the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, we have disturbing evidence that could change. One group, with views so extreme it's been labelled a terrorist organisation and banned in the UK, has infiltrated student rallies at universities here. It's called Hizb ut-Tahrir, and as you'll see, it has a very sinister, hidden agenda.
Palestine will be free!
They're the biggest demonstrations in Australia for decades. Since last October, thousands of people have been regularly taking to the streets to protest the bloodshed in Gaza.
I'm outraged. I am scared for these innocent human beings. The killing of innocent people must stop.
Not surprisingly, university campuses have also been the scene of rallies.
Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Sites like this have now become commonplace across Australia. But not all is as it seems. This is Sheikh Ibrahim Dadoon, a prominent Sydney cleric.
It is in our faith that one must stand against oppression.
At first, his message seems predictable.
No matter who these people are, no matter what faith they come from, it doesn't matter.
But listen longer and you'll hear its sinister tone.
The only hindrance is Zionism. So we need to end Zionism. And you are here to end Zionism.
It's a message of hate, the abolition of the State of Israel. The Sheikh is not keen to talk to me, choosing social media to spread his message.
Come down to the encampments and show your support to your brothers and sisters in Charlotte.
The group behind the video is the innocently enough named Stand for Palestine. It's been a key organiser at the Sydney University demonstrations, as well as joining other major protests in Sydney and Melbourne. And Sheikh Dadoon is a regular speaker.
We have worked side by side and lived amongst each other for centuries.
But Stand for Palestine is really a facade, a campaign platform, being secretly organised in part by Hizb ut-Tahrir, an international Islamist organisation
Global Islamic Political Party,
which in January was outlawed as a terrorist outfit in the UK. Its Australian chapter is not a terrorist group, but it is ramping up its activities under new leadership. Is Hizb ut-Tahrir, in your mind, an extremist group?
They're certainly extremist. They're searching for a global caliphate, which is effectively form of Islamic governance that they believe will eventually rule the world.
Dr. Josh Roos, an expert on extremism, says Hizb ut-Tahrir is a fringe organisation, but warns it's on the move, greatly emboldened by the October 7 terror attacks by Hamas and Israel's brutal response.
It's their time to shine. It's their attempt to go out there and build and to talk about the legitimacy of their struggle and their movement and to attempt to recruit. But also, not just within the Muslim community, they're attempting to grow and to spread their ideas amongst a much wider community.
From the river to the sea, Palestine...
In this special investigation, we can reveal how Hizb ut-Tahrir Australia is capitalising on the October 7 terror attack by Hamas. It's also exploiting deep community concern about the immense loss of Palestinian life and the destruction in Gaza. And most dangerously, it's using front groups to try to recruit new members and to radicalise them.
They prey on Muslim communities, and they create polarization and division.
If there's one person who deeply understands the inner workings of Hizb ut-Tahrir, it's Hadia Masih.
They prey on emotions, and they're very good at pushing out their ideology.
Today, she works in countering extremism. But when she was 19 years old, Hadia was recruited and radicalised by Hizb ut-Tahrir on her university campus in London. How did you get so deep into that group?
Well, it started linking onto an emotion around injustice. I really believed that we could obtain a society that was going to be just, and I believed that Hizb ut-Tahrir were the group to make that happen.
Do you think the group is dangerous?
Hizb ut-Tahrir do not promote violence. They don't condemn it either.
For decades, Hizb ut-Tahrir's stated position of non-violence has allowed it to stay on the right side of the law. But that line was crossed after October 7, when Hamas attacked Israel, because the group's UK wing praised Hamas, itself a banned terror group. And called for jihad during rallies in London.
To those in the professional armies in the Muslim lands, don't care about international law. Care only for your duty to Allah. You must end the occupation and they must withdraw.
In January, the British Parliament banned Hizb ut-Tahrir, declaring it a terrorist organisation.
It is not acceptable to describe Hamas as the heroes of Palestine or the events of the 7th of October as a long-awaited victory. It is not acceptable to call for so-called Muslim armies to rise up and carry out similar acts.
Incredibly, in Australia, Hizb ut-Tahrir has escaped public scrutiny. And while the group is fringe and doesn't represent the Muslim community, we've discovered it's acted almost identically to its UK counterpart since the October 7 terror attack. Just one day after Hamas terrorists flooded into Israel, killing and kidnapping all who stood in their way, Hizb ut-Tahrir began sending out press releases in Australia. They praised Hamas as Islamic warriors or mujahideen for fighting in the theatre of jihad and called on Muslim armies to join the fight against Israel.
Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Within 24 hours, Hizb ut-Tahrir also organised this rally in Sydney's west, where a fiery Sheikh Ibrahim Dadoun celebrated the Hamas attack.
It's a day of courage!
The comments by Sheikh Dadoun were reported and immediately condemned.
There's nothing to celebrate by the murder of innocent civilians going about their day.
But from the PM down, no one publicly drew the link to Hizb ut-Tahrir. Until now. This is Anas al-Wawa. Anas, along with his relatives Amir and Mohammed, are key figures in the group. Anas's father, Ismail al-Wawa, was the founder of the Australian chapter of Hizb ut-Tahrir, and prior to his death last year, was infamous for his anti-Semitic rants.
Any Jew living in Palestine is an illegitimate occupier and is a target of jihad and will end up in the garbage bin of history.
Look, he's an esteemed leader in their world. They view him as having almost prophetic vision of the pathway to caliphate, to this global Islamic governance. And so they view this as that particular moment in time where they can build that.
Josh Roos warns that the current climate is ripe for Hizb ut-Tahrir's extremism.
Hizb ut-Tahrir have been around for a long period of time. Many people view them as redundant, as irrelevant to the conversation. However, they have become more active. And the extent of their rhetoric and the potential violence inherent in their rhetoric is also concerning.
That rhetoric includes calls by Anas al-Wawa for Muslim soldiers in the Middle East to take up arms in the name of Islam and wage jihad.
So they have an obligation to wage jihad today, now, right now.
Hizb ut-Tahrir is lobbying Muslim soldiers to wage this holy war in order to destroy Israel and create a caliphate.
The wing of Talab al-Nusra seeking the Nusra. It's a secret wing that's its job solely is to contact army in order to get the support of them and have a conversation with them, try to convince them to be with the side of the Ummah.
We showed Josh Roos the propaganda videos published by Hizb ut-Tahrir in Australia.
It is a clash of civilizations between the Muslims and their enemies. It is a clash between kufr and iman.
How do you view the portrayal of Hamas in this video posted by Hizb ut-Tahrir?
Oh, they're certainly framed as heroic, as strong, as powerful, something to be celebrated.
Hizb ut-Tahrir insists it does not advocate violence. Does this video has published advocate violence?
So, it advocates warfare. It advocates effectively a holy war against the non-believer, but starting in their own countries and then spreading.
It's a chilling view, pushed not just online, but regularly by the Al-Wawas at Hizb ut-Tahrir meetings, like this one in Lakemba, in Sydney's west.
Once you've established that America is an enemy, the West is an enemy, the UN is an enemy, you hold to this fact with an iron fist, with a hard, really. You do not let anyone detract you away or distract you away from this fact. It's a hard fact.
It was a similar message at this rally in May.
Indeed, Palestine will not be free until the entire land is liberated from the river to the sea. As we see in every corner of the world, people are begging for answers. And Gaza has shown a light on this issue that affects every single one of us. And Islam is a solution to the problems that we face.
But, as you'll see, we found Hizb ut-Tahrir has gone one step further. It's using front groups to conceal its identity and infiltrate the mainstream pro-Palestine protest movement.
Hizb ut-Tahrir, like other extreme groups, will use any mechanism they can to push their agenda.
It's week 3 of the students' pro-Palestine sit-in at Sydney University. And despite the wet weather, emotions are running high. Charismatic Muslim speakers stand shoulder to shoulder with student protesters, seemingly united on a common cause.
Fight against this genocide, which is a gross injustice on the Palestinian people.
But that's only one part of the story. An investigation by 60 Minutes has found Hizb ut-Tahrir, a radical Islamist group. Recently banned in the UK as a terrorist outfit, is masquerading behind a front group called Stand for Palestine, an active organiser in the protest movement. Josh Roos is an extremism expert at Deakin University in Melbourne and says front groups are a common strategy employed by extremist outfits.
It is a form of breadcrumbing by offering a moderate sounding front. You can then slowly pull people into your more extreme narrative.
But the Sydney University protest isn't the first rally organised by Hizb ut-Tahrir under the guise of front groups. Stand for Palestine is, in fact, a quick rebrand of another Hizb ut-Tahrir aligned front group called Stand for Uyghurs. Until the war in Gaza, it had been rallying for China's oppressed Uyghur population. At rallies in 2022, there were many familiar faces, including Sheikh Ibrahim Dadoun.
Our faith is in Allah Azza wa Jal, and we will call to Allah, and we will stand together as one ummah.
Hizb ut-Tahrir's long-time Australian spokesman, Wasim Durehi, took to the stage to to push the organisation's ultimate goal of a global Islamic caliphate, known as the Khalifa.
Put at the forefront of our political struggle is the restitution of power. And the centre of that must be the work to re-establish the Khilafah.
And long-time Hizb ut-Tahrir backer Faraz Nomani openly admitted Hizb ut-Tahrir's involvement.
As I do so, I acknowledge the important contribution of Hizb ut-Tahrir to today's event in lending help and an important hand with the logistics and with the volunteers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward.
But post-October 7, Hizb ut-Tahrir shifted tack, and Stand for Uyghurs quickly morphed into Stand for Palestine. And soon after, it began urging its followers to attend protests, like this one in Melbourne South, where ugly scenes soon erupted. Pro-Palestine and pro-Israeli groups clashed in violent riots, resulting in the evacuation of a local synagogue. In Sydney, when the Prime Minister's office was defaced, Stand for Palestine cheered. And yet, Hizb ut-Tahrir's involvement stayed hidden. 3 of the administrators behind the Stand for Palestine WhatsApp group are key Hizb ut-Tahrir activists: Anas, Amir and Mohammed Al-Wawa. And all 3 have had a presence at the Sydney University encampment. Is it concerning in your mind that Hizb ut-Tahrir has set up, at least through a front group, Stand for Palestine, at Sydney University, a key part of the encampment?
They're not at the centre of these protests, but it is important to be aware who is there and the extreme views that they do hold, and quite frankly, for people to avoid them.
I tried to speak to the 3 Al-Wawas about Hizb ut-Tahrir.
The person you are calling is not available.
But they didn't respond to questions on the phone or in person.
Please, Anas. I'm busy, man. Excuse me, Anas.
But online, Hizb ut-Tahrir Australia isn't so shy, publishing videos like this that glorify Hamas and urge the Muslim world on to fight for the end of Israel and the creation of an Islamic caliphate. Josh Roos says Australia should immediately strengthen its hate speech laws to deal with Hizb ut-Tahrir.
I think there's a clear case for their activities and the violent rhetoric that they employ. They might not be necessarily crossing that line into advocating terrorism, but there is inherent violence in what they're saying and doing.
In the UK, Hadia Massi, a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir for 10 years,
I was radicalised when I was at university.
Who now works in countering extremism, believes her government's terror ban won't work.
When you ban anything, it can always come back as something else. So banning something isn't particularly a way of getting rid of it. That's not a reality. They'll go underground, but they'll always end up surfacing somewhere else.
She says the answer lies in shining a light on the risks of extremism and countering hate through education.
You cannot ever, take the wolf away from the sheep, but at least the sheep will know what the wolf looks like.
Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.